Hare Krishna, all of you. Thanks for joining. So we dedicate this session to Srila Prabhupada, who is founder Acharya of International Society of Krishna Consciousness, which is ISKCON. And I'll also like to take blessings from my initiating spiritual master, His Holiness Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, and my instructing spiritual master, who is His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. So with their blessings, we'll start our journey on to the chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. And basically, first chapter is like setting the scene, right? And it forms the basis on which then Krishna sings this Geet, right? What we call as Bhagavad Gita, right? The song, the divine song sung by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, right? And the chapter has been titled as Contents of Gita Summarized. So why was this title given? Basically, Srila Prabhupada has taken this title from his um, Divine Grace, Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Bhakti Vinod Thakur is a father and Param Guru of Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, uh, Bhakti Siddhant Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, right? So this title basically reflects that the entire Bhagavad Gita is sort of summarized in this chapter, right? And why is that so? Because this chapter will cover uh, basically Jnana Yoga, which we call also as Sankhya Yoga. It will cover some part of Nishkam Karma Yoga. Uh, and then it also reflects, although superficially, but briefly, it reflects, qualities of a devotee, sthit prajna, right? So basically, if you see, it touches all the three main sections of Bhagavad Gita, which is, Jnana, uh, karma, and bhakti, right? Which is why this chapter has been titled as Contents of the Gita Summarized, right? So we have already covered the first chapter, completed all the 46 verses. So today we will start on the first section, basically, of the second chapter, which is Krishna willing, we'll try to cover all the 10 verses. If not, then we will, complete it in the next class. Okay. And then, and thereafter, subsequent sections, as we told you, Gyan Sankhya from 11 to 30th. Then there is also a small section of Karma Kanda, right? Sakam Karma from 31 to 37. And then Nishkam Karma from 38 to 53. And thereafter, when Arjuna asked, like, okay, can you please highlight the characteristic, of a Sthita Prajna, then Krishna, thereafter recites them from 54 to 72. So this is how this chapter is shaped. Okay. Now, uh, what is the connection between how we ended the first chapter and how are we going to start the chapter 2, right? So in the previous chapter, we saw that Arjuna put forward various reasons. Now, someone will like to recite what, someone will like to share what those reasons were. I think so. In first chapter, Arjun gave 4 reasons that he shall not fight. So will someone like to come forward and share what those reasons were? Shanmukh ji, yeah.
Yeah, so he said, um, what benefit I'll be getting by killing our own relatives and all for the sake of kingdom,
Right. His own enjoyment, right?
his own for his own enjoyment.
Right.
And then he said, yeah, he was saying like all these acharyas, gurus, and all were there. So he doesn't want. And second thing he was saying is it will cause sin.
Right.
He said it is okay even I get killed
Right.
And I don't want to get this. I will get only sin if
Right.
I kill them. So there is, I don't see reason. And third one, he was saying the kulakshaya pranashyanti kuladharma sanatanaha.
Right.
And then he was saying that the complete family traditions and everything will get destroyed. And
Right.
because of that, if that Pindodaka Kriya stops, then our ancestors will fall down from heaven to
Right.
hell.
Right.
So he has said that. That is also he
Very
was
good.
saying. And
Very
then
good.
I think fourth.
I think so. You already said that, he was little bit having compassion towards his grandfather, teachers, friends,
Right.
family members. So that was the first thing. Yeah. So you touched upon that. Thank you very much, Shanmukji. Yeah. Uh, so as we said that these reasons basically forms the basis of why Krishna will sing and share this divine philosophy with the humanity, right? And it was Krishna's plan basically, right, to push Arjuna in this illusion. Arjuna is a pure devotee of Krishna, and someone who is a pure devotee of Krishna is beyond the three modes of material nature. And, someone who is beyond the three modes cannot be influenced by illusion. Right? So, uh, Arjuna was specifically put, right, in this situation. And then Dhritarashtra, having heard that, wow, it's so good. And this is what I was looking for. He became so happy that, Pandavas would finally renounce the kingdom and they will, just go to forest. But here we go Sanjay. Sanjay is again a devotee of Krishna, right? Although he was serving Dhritarashtra as his secretary, but uh, he was a devotee of Krishna. So he could understand the mind of his master, Dhritarashtra. And which is why he just checked him. And he said, wait a minute, here comes Krishna. And now Krishna is going to describe, you know, uh, uh, and is going to basically inspire Arjuna to not renounce his responsibility and basically to encourage him to fight, right? So this we will see in today's section also, right? Where Arjuna will basically put forward his further confusion today in few initial verses 4, 5, 6, and then he in the seventh verse will accept Krishna as his guru. He formally surrenders onto Krishna as Krishna's disciple, right? Because until now, uh, Arjun was speaking with Krishna in terms of his friend, in terms of his relatives. But the discussion of spiritual topics, the discussion thereafter becomes very intense, right? So Arjuna, having been put in this situation by Krishna's divine energy, uh, he got confused, he got bewildered about his duty, about his responsibility. And finally, having realized, you know, that I'm confused, I'm not able to basically take a call, right? He took a very good decision. He surrendered onto Krishna. And that is not uncommon to see in our lives also. Because uh, even in our lives, we see that maybe not at every moment but very often we'll get confused, we'll get depressed, we'll get distressed, right? And now we are seeing during the COVID situation, it is more than what we have earlier seen. So becomes, this Bhagavad Gita becomes so relevant to us. Sometimes we end up thinking, oh, this was something which was spoken or maybe relevant 5,000 years ago, and it may not have as much relevance. But no, you know, anything which is spoken by Krishna is eternally relevant to every time and circumstances, right? So we will move forward, right? And we'll start with the first verse of second chapter. So will someone like to recite this verse? Like you don't have to be master. Yeah, please go ahead. Shirisha ji, you would like to recite?
सञ्जय उवाच तं तथा कृपयाविष्टम् अश्रुपूर्णाकुलेक्षणं विषीदन्तमिदं वाक्यम् उवाच मधुसूदन.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Harshad, you would like to read the translation?
Sure, Sumit. Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudana, Krishna spoke the following words.
Right. Thank you very much. So here Sanjay is basically saying that Arjuna was in a very distressed condition, right? Now, when Arjuna is in this condition, these are basically signs of ignorance, right? Because his compassion was not well placed or not rightly placed, right? Because compassion for eternal soul leads us to self realization, while compassion for material bodies, you know, will lead us to attachment and degradation, right? Therefore, the word used here for Krishna is Madhusudana, right? Now, why has Sanjay used the specific word Madhusudana? Because Krishna, in form of Hayagriva, uh, killed the demon Madhu, right? And now, herewith, Arjuna will like Krishna to kill his misunderstanding, to remove his misunderstanding, right? The demon of misunderstanding which has overtaken Arjuna, right? And the most important part of this is that unfortunately in today's world, no one knows where the compassion should be applied. You know, Prabhupada in the purport of this verse says that compassion for the dress of a drowning man is senseless. So what he was saying is a man fallen in the ocean, if you just go and you know bring his dress back and say, oh, I have saved the person, have you really saved the person? The person might have drowned. You have just brought his shirt or jacket back, right? Now if a person is is drowning in the ocean of nescience, in the ocean of this material existence, how can we save the person? Can we save the person by just focusing or helping the person for the material well-being, for rescuing his outward dress, the gross material body? No, right? So a person who is not following the path of self-realization will not know the real purpose and how can we save the humanity, right? It is not that we don't have to do any charitable services. We have to do, but we have to do in the right spirit, with the right mindset. But someone who does it out of ignorance, just caring for the outward, this dress, the outward body, the outward material body, then he is no better than a shudra, right? One who only laments unnecessarily. you know Here Arjuna is a Kshatriya right? And Kshatriya, you know, as we sometimes superficially understand the word Kshatriya, it is not that they are there just to protect physically. Their physical protection also has the higher purpose that they are also supposed to protect the dharma, right? That is why earlier they were Raj Rishis, right? So Krishna would not appreciate a Kshatriya like Arjun to act on a platform of a Shudra, right? Which is why Krishna will start speaking, right? So here, someone will like to recite this verse. Anyone can speak, like, yeah, uh, Shanmukh ji, you like, yeah, please.
Hare Krishna. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Kutastva Kasmalam Idam Vishami Samupastitam Anaryajustam Asvargyam Akitikaram Arjuna.
Very good. Thank you very much, Shanmukh ji. Someone else will like to read the translation?
Yeah, I can do it.
Thanks, Isha.
Yeah, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets but to infamy."
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Prashant. So here Krishna starts, sort of with chastising Arjuna with very hard words, right? Uh, so, you know, sometimes depending on the time and circumstance and the situation, uh, a doctor has to lift a surgical knife, right? Doctors are supposed to be, speaking very softly, very mildly. But if situation requires, they have to do surgery also, right? And here, depending and realizing the situation, Krishna, spoke with lot of intensity. And one important thing Prabhupada highlights in the purport is that Krishna is mentioned here as Bhagavana, right? Because Krishna, this is the first verse where Krishna is speaking. And through the entire course of Bhagavad Gita, you will see Krishna has been addressed as Bhagavan. So I'll touch base upon that thing. We have in great length covered already, that Bhagavan feature of Krishna during our introductory session, right? In session 8th. But I will briefly touch upon that part, right? And here Krishna says, Kutastva Kashmalam, from where had these impurities come upon, right? Again, it is not befitting to Arjuna to lament when Krishna is standing besides him, right? It is not befitting to him. Which is why Krishna says, Kutaha, where from has these impurities come to you, right? And then he says, Anarya. Now, can anyone share what does word Arya means?
The one we should, I think, the one that we should not practice.
Yeah, Anarya. Yeah, and what does word Arya means?
The one we should practice.
Right, Arya means someone who knows the essence of human life, right? Arya means someone who knows the purpose of life is self-realization, right? Someone who knows and who lives uh, as and for spiritual and spirituality, right? They are known as Aryas. They know purpose of life. And here Krishna says that why you are acting like an Arya, right? You are a Kshatriya, you are a leader of the society, and you have to help me establish the dharma. And you are speaking and lamenting, looking at the bodies, the outward dress of these people. I never expected this from you, right? And this will not lead you to heavenly planets or higher planets or spiritual planets, right? It will lead you to aswargam, right? Also, that it will lead you to akirti, right? It will lead you to infamy, right? Because if you act like this, you know, then people will deride, people will ridicule, right? So Krishna is speaking strongly here to basically also evoke anger in Arjuna by speaking these strong words, you know, because he didn't want, Krishna didn't want him to run away like a coward, right? Run away because of his miserly weakness. Okay. So now Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, which is what is said in the previous verse 2.2, Shri Bhagavan Vacha, right? Now Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. We have discussed and we will keep on discussing this important point because this is very important for all of us to clearly understand, you know, because sometimes, various uh, unauthentic um, so-called uh, people who tend to be spiritualists, they they misinterpret, the essence of Bhagavad Gita and essence of Dharma, right? Krishna has himself highlighted that how this transcendental knowledge should be received. He, and we will see it when we cover the fourth chapter, right? He says in the fourth chapter, Evam parampara praptam imam rajrisho vidu sa kalena mehta yoganasta parantapa. So he says, Evam parampara praptam. You can only understand me through disciplic succession, right? Someone, you know, uh, just having gone through or superficially understood Bhagavad Gita with his own material intellect, try to translate or comment of the Bhagavad Gita, uh, will be as good as a milk touch by a poisonous snake, right? Milk is pure, but when it is touched by a poisonous snake, it becomes a poison, which is why it is very important for us, right? Because if you see in 4.3, Krishna will again say that what? Um, Sa evayam maya tedhya yoga prokta puratana bhakto si me sakha cheti rahasyam hi eta uttamam. Right? I am sharing this secret with you, this science, this transcendental science, this Bhagavad Gita with you, because you are my Bhakt and Sakha. You are my devotee and my friend, right? Which is why you can understand this science. This is confidential, this secret. This is the basic qualification, right? So we have to understand that. And it is, we have covered that in section 5 of our introductory session, the importance of guide, that whereby in the Padma Puran, it is mentioned that not only that, we should see this disciplic succession superficially, the disciplic succession has been clearly defined in Padma Puran, whereby it is said that only someone who has been initiated under these four Vaishnav Sampradayas, which are starting from Lakshmi ji, from Shiva, from four Kumaras, and from Brahma ji. Only person who has been initiated under these Sampradayas, whose spiritual representatives, spiritual master representatives of these Sampradayas would be like, will be Shripad Ramanujacharya, Shripad Madhvacharya, right? Shripad Vishnu Swami, and Shripad Nimbarkacharya. So these four spiritual masters are representing these four disciplic successions. So there it is very clearly highlighted that we should seek spiritual knowledge under these four Vaishnav disciplic successions, not any arbitrary, things. It is similar to that, if you want to become a doctor, right? You cannot just buy books from a shop and become a doctor. You will not understand. You will not qualified, right? Only if you join an accredited institute, then only will you be able to really understand the science of medicine, of surgery. And then under the guidance, you will be trained, right? Then you will gain experience, you will gain knowledge, and then you will become a doctor who can help others. Similarly, this spiritual science, just going on and window shopping, oh, this books look good and this book look good to me, right? No, you have to be very careful, right? And which is why, um, we have to understand that there is no difference between Krishna and Krishna's body sometimes, because people say that, oh, Krishna is saying, no, no, it is not Krishna, it is someone within Krishna, who he is representing. No, that understanding is totally incorrect, because Krishna again in the 4th chapter, verse 9, he will say the same thing. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yuveti tattvata tyaktva jeham punarjanmam Neti mameti. So Arjuna, so he says, someone who understands my birth and activities, my transcendental birth and activities, right? And tattvata, very scientifically, very philosophically. If someone understands me, then he will not take birth again, right? So it is very important. It is not superficial understanding, right? It is not, it is a deep science, right? So Krishna confirms that he is the supreme personality of Godhead in Bhagavad Gita, right? We see there are many verses in Bhagavad Gita where he highlights that there is no truth beyond him, right? And this fact has also been substantiated by other demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and other demigods, right? And not only them, but this has been also accepted by many spiritual masters, right? That Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. I'll just put forward few verses, right? Not go too much in detail, because I covered this in the introductory session. So here in this words from 7th chapter, Mata parataram nanyat kinchid asti dhananjaya. Mai sarvam idam protam sutre manigana eva. Someone will like to read the translation?
Yeah, I'll read.
Mhm.
Hello.
Yes, Harshita, please go ahead.
Yeah. O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me, as pearls are strung on the thread.
Right. Thank you, Harshita. Mata parataram nanya. There is no truth superior to me. Clearly highlights it. Everything rests upon me. Right. Then here, aham sarvasya prabho. hmm, Mata sarvam pravartate. Iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvita. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly knows this and engage in my devotional service. Bhajante ma. Iti matva bhajante ma. And worship me with all their hearts. Right. So again he highlights, and then so this is just a couple of words I've put forward, right? There are many verses. And this verse, I've picked up from Srimad Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada highlights this verse in the purport also. Ete chamsa kalapumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam Indrari Vyakulam Lokam Hridayanti Yuge Yuge. So this verse is from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, third chapter. So in the third chapter of the first canto, the various incarnations have been highlighted, right? And in verse 26, 27, thereafter, it is said that there are as many incarnations as there are rivulets of a river, tributaries of a river. So, only the important ones have been highlighted, right? And thereafter, in this verse number 28 of third chapter of first canto, this has been highlighted. Someone will like to read this?
I'll go, Sumit.
Yeah, thanks, Ish.
All of the above mentioned incarnations are either plenary portions or portions of the plenary portions of the Lord. But Lord Sri Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. All of them appear on planets whenever there is a disturbance created by the atheist. The Lord incarnates to protect the thesis.
Right. Thank you. Right. So here, Krishna, here in Bhagavatam, it is clearly said that all those incarnations which have been mentioned in various Vedic scriptures, right? They are all Krishna is the original. We also read, you know, Eshe Ve Bhagavan Sakshat Adyo Narayana Puman Mohayam Maya Lokam Gunash Charati Vrishnishu. Right? This verse again is from Srimad Bhagavatam, spoken by Bhishma, that Adyo Narayana Puman. That this person whom you think, you know, is roaming amongst the Vrishnis is not ordinary person. He's original Narayan, Adi Narayan. He's Adi Narayan, right? So time and again, this has been highlighted that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. Now, for people who think that there is difference between Krishna's body and Krishna himself, many so-called unauthentic commentators, they highlighted incorrectly this fact. But Brahmaji very beautifully mentions this in Brahma Samhita. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinde Sarva Karana Karanam. Someone will read the translation. Dipeshji,
I would like to.
Okay. Okay, and we please. So Dipeshji will take you next.
Yeah, no issue.
Yeah, and we please go ahead.
Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has eternal blissful spiritual body. He is an origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime of all cause of all causes.
And Anvi, who is speaking this verse?
Brahma.
Yes, very nice, good. So Brahmaji is highlighting this in Brahma Samhita, that there may be many Ishwars, right? But Parama Ishwar is Krishna, and he's Satchitananda Vigraha. Now, sometimes, as followers of Sanatan Dharma, we call the deity in the temple as Murti, right? But, Murti is actually not the right word. People who understand science, the Dharma, right? The Sanatan Dharma, they should always call that as Vigraha, right? Vigraha, because there is a lot of difference between Murti and Vigraha, right? These deities, they're through various rituals and prayers and, by wish of devotees, Krishna actually comes, or the deities are basically enlivened, There have been many devotees, and there are many devotees, who can reciprocate with deities, who can speak with deities, right? So these deities are not normal stone, metal, or wood, right? These are Vigraha. And these Vigraha are Satchitananda, right? Krishna's body is Satchitananda. Sat, Chit and Ananda means it is full of knowledge, full of bliss, and it is eternal, right? So Krishna's body is not like you and my body. Krishna's body is transcendental. It is divya, right? And somewhere else in scriptures, it is also mentioned that Krishna, when we are offering food to Krishna, right? It will come in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse number 13. Anvi, are you there? Still there online? So
Yes.
recite that shloka, 13th verse from 3rd chapter. Yagna,
Second chapter or third chapter?
3rd chapter, 13th verse. Yagna Shishta Sena Santo.
Yagnashishta Shana Santo Nochanti Sarvakilbishil Bhujante Tetva Agham Papa Ye Pachanti Atmakarana.
And also explain what is the meaning, Anvi.
The meaning is, whoever offer to me are devotees. Whoever do not offer to me they eat for their self-enjoyment. They only eat sin.
Very good, right?
Mr.
So,
Uncle, I want to say.
okay, Nivan, you also, please go ahead.
Yagna Shishta Shana Santu Shinti Sarvakil Vishnu Bhujanti Tetva Agam Papa Yipachanti Atmakavana.
Thank you very much, Nivanji. Thank you. So, now, why I want to bring forward that verse was that when we offer food to Krishna, sometimes, again, unscrupulous people, just to defame our science, our scriptures, they will say that why you are offering it to Krishna? Does Krishna eat? Yes, Krishna's body is transcendental. Krishna can eat by seeing. Krishna can do anything, any activity from any of his body parts, right? So yes, Krishna does eat. And so many times we have seen that happening, right? So Krishna's body, we should, followers of Vedic Dharma, followers of Sanatan Dharma, follow of or Vaishnavism should clearly understand that Krishna's personality is supreme and transcendental. There is no difference between him and his body. He's Parabrahma, right? So this is, I just wanted to highlight this. And then, this verse is spoken by Shivji. Aradhanam sarvesham Vishnu aradhanam param tasmad parataram devi tadiyanam samarjanam. Someone will read the translation. Dipeshji, you will read, please.
Yeah, of all types of worship, worship of Lord Vishnu is best, and better than the worship of Lord Vishnu is the worship of his devotee, the Vaishnava.
Right? Vishnu Aradhanam Param. So here, Shivji in Padma Puran, he's sharing this fact with Mother Parvati. Vishnu Aradhanam Param, right? And why does Shivji says that even higher than worship of Vishnu is serving the devotees of Krishna or Vishnu or Vaishnavas? Why? Krishna, again, elsewhere, it is highlighted in our Vedas that Krishna is not as much satisfied as with the ghee offered in the Yagna Kund as he is satisfied when a prasad is fed to a Vaishnava, a Brahmana, right? So, Krishna, so we have to be very careful when we are dealing with devotees, right? So, yeah. And again, here it is clearly highlighted the supremacy of Krishna, right? And Prabhupada is quoting this verse in the purport of this verse. Vadanti tattvavidastatvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdeti. Someone will read the translation. Anyone can read?
I can read, Sumitji.
Yeah.
Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-real substance Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan.
Right. So, after completing our study of Bhagavad Gita, we will launch our study of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Um, Generally, we are expecting that it will take around 18 months for us to cover, somewhere 18 to 20 months for us to cover the Bhagavad Gita, and thereafter we will similarly, systematically, and very deeply study Srimad Bhagavatam. Many of the verses which I will produce are from Srimad Bhagavatam, and so would Srila Prabhupada do in his purports. Right? So here in this verse is said that the learned transcendentalists, right? Transcendentalists are people, you know, who are very serious, sincere, and determined about their spiritual lives, right? The devotees, right? They know that the absolute truth can be realized in 3 degrees or in 3 understandings, which is Brahma, Paramatma, or Bhagavan, right? There are 3 levels of understanding, right? So these transcendentalists are people who are not dealing with this material world, but they deal with something beyond. The Brahman feature, I'm sorry, like there is a power cut here. So are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Sumitji.
So the Brahma feature is basically the existential aspect of the absolute truth, right? While the Paramatma feature is like a functional aspect, right? What we call as a managerial aspect of absolute truth. Right? So just a second. So Brahma is basically, understanding of Brahma is basically an existential aspect. Understanding of Paramatma is like a managerial or functional aspect. The understanding of Bhagavan is someone, is possessor of all the uh, qualities, right? Now, also elsewhere, Parashar Muni explained these features of Bhagavan, right? Which I'll try to cover. So these 3 features we understand as follows. Now, what do you see here in this picture? There is a ray of light coming through the window, right? This ray of light. So, for example, although all of us have our eyes, but at night, if there is no artificial light, then with these eyes, we cannot see anything, right? If there is no sun or moonlight. These so-called our senses are very limited in what they can or what they cannot do, right? So when we see that during the sunset, we may not need these artificial lights at our home. We'll see that, yeah, the sun has risen, and we see that, through uh, sun rays, we realize that sun has come up, right? So sun rays are representing or the whole sun planet, right? And when we go out of the balcony, right, we see the sun planet also. We see it as a sun disk, right? But we know that actually there is sun god, right? Vivaswan, who is personification, who is the deity, right? So these things are basically, this is one and the same thing, but the realization is, or the understanding is a different level of understanding, right? Rays, yes, it is, right? Sun disk, it is, sun planet, but the highest understanding is understanding that Surya Dev is Bhagavan, right? So they are representing the sun glow, presiding deity of sun, right? And this Vivaswan being, sun god is highlighted in 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, right? Similarly, in same degree, we understand the supreme personality of Godhead in three of his aspects: Brahma, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So, for example, if there is a sun, but like now, for example, it is a rainy season here in Bangalore. If you go out, the sun may be covered with cloud, right? But that does not mean that sun doesn't exist. It has just been covered by cloud. Similarly, sometimes the Bhagavan feature, you know, also get covered by our ignorance, right? And we think that it is only the Brahman aspect of Bhagavan which is visible and which we try to realize, that his existential aspect, the existential aspect of the feature of absolute truth. No, but here in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, right, 1.2.11, it is very clearly highlighted that these are three aspects of absolute truth, right? And they are all the same, right? They are representing the same personality of Godhead. There is one Acharya Jiva Goswami, who is again uh, comes under the disciplic succession of Sriman Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Uh, he has almost written 900 pages in his Tattva Sandarbha on this one verse, 1.2.11. That this is 11th verse of second chapter of first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sripad Jiva Goswami has written 9 pages highlighting the importance, clarifying very deeply, this thing in his Sandarbhas. And Prabhupada has also extensively quoted this verse, almost more than 200 times he has quoted this verse in various lectures and various purports, right? So it is very important for us to understand that this Sri Bhagavan Uvacha is actually Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, the Bhagavan, right? So we will move forward on the third verse. Now, anyone will like to read this verse? Yeah, Harshad, you will read the translation.
Sure, Sumit. O son Partha, do not yield to this degrading impotism. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Harshad. So here, like, who is Pritha? Does anyone know Pritha?
Kunti.
Son of
Kunti, yeah.
Kunti Maharani. Yes. So Pritha is another name of Maharani Kunti. So here, why is Krishna saying? Why is Krishna specifically using this word Parth? Because he again wants to make him realize that you are coming in a very, sort of glorious dynasty, right? Both from your mother's side and father's side, right? You are a Kshatriya. And also he wanted to highlight that you are my relative. Having all these things, how can you talk this anarya thing? Like, so, and then he also says this word parantapa in this verse. Parantapa is a very important uh, uh, word. Parantapa means chastiser of the enemy. It is used for Kshatriyas, right? Krishna will very often use this in Bhagavad Gita for for Arjuna, right? Now, herein, if you see, there is one word known as klebyam, what our today Hasini recited, right? Klebyam samagam partha, right? So, klebyam means how has this degrading impotence come upon you? Now, please try to understand who are Kshatriyas? Kshatriyas, they are like, they are not like you and me, normal people. Like they are protector of the entire, the territory. They are like, you know, they are fighters. They are powerful. They are masculine, right? And here Krishna is saying Arjuna is impotent. This is like, you know, something which is very, very embarrassing for Arjuna, right? Because Kshatriyas are protector of dharma, protector of people, right? And they are very masculine. Like earlier, Kshatriyas, you know, uh, they will show their, worth by having so many wives and so much kingdom and so much this thing, right? And someone calling them impotent is like a big insult to them, right? And also by saying him Klebyam, Krishna wanted him to remind and remember the history where they Pandavas were sent to forest by the Kauravas, right? By Duryodhan. And during their time, their exile in the forest, Arjuna went to Swarga, Indralok, right? And there he helped Indra to, to fight with the demons, and he was really glorious. And there was a Apsara known as Urvashi, right? Now, Urvashi, uh, Arjuna will, when he went to Indra Loka, he would often observe Urvashi. And uh, Indra also noticed that Arjuna will often observe Urvashi, and Indra didn't understand like what's like he may be infatuated by Urvashi. So uh, you know, and Urvashi also having seen the prowess of Arjuna was attracted towards Arjuna. So once Urvashi approached Arjuna that I want to have a physical relationship with you. Now Arjuna said, I am sorry, but I look at you as my mother, because I would only observe you as my mother, because I know that in my dynasty, Pururava, he had married you, so I consider you as my mother, and then Urvashi really felt bad. And how, because you know for them at Swargloka, these are some of the things which are allowed there, right? But Arjuna told that I am sorry, I am not from this planet, I am from Earth planet where we follow certain rules and regulations, right? So I cannot have this relationship with you, right? I see you as my mother. And this, upon hearing this, Urvashi felt insulted, and she cursed Arjuna, to become impotent, right? Now, anything which happens with the devotee actually is a plan of Krishna. Please try to understand that it is not that we will not face challenges or difficulties in our lives. We will face difficulties and challenges in our life. But please try to understand that as long as and as much faith you have in Krishna, you will see hand of Krishna in how he is going to help you through and in those difficult and challenging times. Now, although we can see that, oh, this may be something so degrading, right? So embarrassing for Arjuna, a Kshatriya like him to be cursed. But then we see during the course of Mahabharata that how this one curse helped them, through the Agyatavas, right? When they were in Virat, under King Virata when Arjuna became Brihanala, right? And as a eunuch, right? Then there Arjuna became Brihanala and taught Uttara the dancing, right? So Krishna, by saying him important, he wanted to again, incite anger in him. That how can you talk so nonsense? This pity, weakness of heart, durbalyam, you know. And then there is one more thing Krishna highlights in this, what our Hasini shared. It is Shudram. In this verse, it is said, Shudram Hridaya Dorbalyam. Krishna said that you are, a Kshatriya, but you are talking like Shudra. And this is again a great insult, So Krishna was really heavy upon Arjuna, right? So these are some of the duties, which are basically, highlighted um, in our scriptures, right? Now, what are those duties of a Kshatriya? Kshatriya, actually, they have to use violence to maintain law and order, right? For example, if our police people say, they will not use violence, they will all become like, they'll say that, I'm sorry, how can I punish this? This person is this person. Then who will take care of law and order situation in the world, right? So Kshatriyas, they actually have to use violence to maintain law and order. And this person like Duryodhana and Kauravas, they can dare to, attempt to disrobe Mother Draupadi in the court. Then what else can't they do, right? They are like demons. So Krishna wanted that king, pious king like Yudhishthir should sit on the throne, right? And he should rule the earth planet, right? So he wanted to establish dharma, right? Because it was his responsibility. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanira bhavati bharata abhyudhanam dharmasya tadatmanam srijamayam. In 4.7, in 4th chapter, verse 7, Krishna highlights, I have come here to establish dharma, and I am asking you to work under my guidance, right? So sometimes, what happens is that we try to become advisors of Krishna. That Krishna, it could have been better if this has happened, this could have happened, or Krishna, I want this and all, But that is not the right approach, because that is something like becoming a controller. When we feel challenges and problems, we like to hold on to everything, that we want to control everything, that no, we should do like this, right? But that is not the right approach. We should let Krishna to be the advisor. We should let Krishna to be the controller, right? And what are we going to become? His assistant. We are going to assist him. We are going to coordinate with him, right? We are going to facilitate what Krishna wants. Let him be the controller. Let him be the advisor. We should not become advisors for Krishna, right? So let him define. And with that, we see during, Arjuna started from becoming the advisor of Krishna, and towards the end, we see that how when Arjuna followed the advice and he became the assistant to follow the advices of Krishna, how glorious and how victorious, he became, right? So that is the path we all should follow. We all should follow on the footsteps of Arjuna, right? Now, there is an example like this is a real-time story where there was a conversation between a Buddhist guru and Prabhupada, right? And Buddhist guru was saying that he was promoting non-violence, and how we should not be violent and all. When Prabhupada was saying, yes, we should not be violent, but if it is required, in the proper place, proper situation, under proper guidance, we will have to use violence also to protect, right? And Buddhist guru was not in agreement with that. He said, no, 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 we should not use violence, and we should be, non-violent and all this. And then Prabhupada said, okay, let me ask you a question. And Buddhist, there were some disciples of this Buddhist guru, and some lady disciples were also there. So Prabhupada asked, like, tell me, if someone, some rascal, they will try to molest one of your, female disciples, would you not protect her? And then Buddhist guru said, no, I will not. To the embarrassment of his disciples, they felt so bad, right? So, violence has to be rightly placed, is what is important for all of us to understand. And that is a Kshatriya dharma, right? When Ravan is taking away Mata Sita, can our say, okay, can our, okay, just hold on. So when Ravana was taking Mother Sita, should Bhagwan Ram would sit quietly there? No, right? He used violence, right? He gave proper punishment to Ravana, right? And that is, what we see in our conventional life also. We have to put people behind bars if they are doing something mischievous and wrong, and they are, because if we don't put them behind bars, then they will create chaos in the society, right? And Draupadi being disrobed publicly, we cannot just sit like that, right? So Arjuna's question about spoiling of family tradition and dynasty, uh, if all men die again, it does not make sense, because even if there is no war, there is no battle of Kurukshetra, then Duryodhana and team, they are already making chaos, right? Why Krishna wanted to establish dharma, right? And Kshatriyas, they are basically trained for challenging and for killing. Their whole training, like we doctors or all you engineers, you have gone through proper training, right? So Kshatriyas also, they are trained for challenging and killing. In forest, they are allowed to hunt animals, animals, which are increasing, or they are disturbing saintly people in forest, right? To see blood, so that in battle they don't fall unconscious. Like, I will give you an example. When we do our medical study, medical training, when we see blood for the first time, many of us and our colleagues, they, become, almost, they are not able to see that, right? They will faint seeing the blood. And that may happen to many of us also in our life. You might have seen people sometimes are scared, but doctors, they are trained to see blood, right? Doctors are trained to see the pain, because if our hands will start shaking seeing the blood and seeing the pain, then how will we manage the patient? Similarly, the Kshatriyas are trained, right? Kshatriyas has to be strong and fearless, right? And all these are taken from reference from Parasa Smriti, right? So uh, I think so. I will pause here, right? If today we were only able to cover 3 verses, I'll, take the rest of the verses maybe in next session. And now I want to check if someone has any questions or comments or any suggestions.
Sumit ji, I have one question related to that Pardha's verse.
Which verse?
Arjuna's mainly on. So he says, Kulachaye pranashyanti kuladharma sanatanaha.
Right.
Dharmena stekulam. So what is the reference for him to speak about it? I mean, is there any reference? Because that is his own learning from some other scripture, or see
which verse are you talking about? Sorry, which verse is it?
So in the first chapter.
Oh, okay. First chapter, which verse number?
I will tell, because 39, I think.
Okay. Okay.
So what the doubt I got is, see, we also learned from our ancestors that we have to do this Pindodaka Kriya and all that, right, for our ancestors.
Right.
So he started speaking all that. I mean, so that is actually, if you see, it is, there must be some reference for him from where I'm asking what is the reference for him to speak about that verse, because everything else is he was saying, but that specific things he was keep on telling that the family traditions will decline.
Right. So this verse, right, with the
Mhm.
destruction of dynasty,
Yeah.
the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus the rest of the family become. So here Arjuna is talking about, like we discussed, I think so, in our respective class, that this is part of Sanatan Dharma, right? This is as part of Sanatan Dharma. Please try to understand. We'll discuss it in detail. That if you see Mahabharata, like there are two levels of understanding. One is from a karma kanda perspective, and one is from a transcendental, from a devotional perspective, right? There are many rules and regulations which have been highlighted in our scriptures, which we should be following, right? If we are living a normal course of our life, right, then we have to perform certain duties, right? So we have to follow this, and this is not uncommon, right? This we even see,
It is
right?
common. Yeah.
We see in our conventional life also, during a period that we have to offer, right? And there up in the same section, I also shared a verse from Bhagavatam, if I'm not wrong, which highlights that yes, everyone should follow these rules and regulations, but a pure devotee, right, someone who is really, totally detached, is not bound by any of these rules and regulations. But otherwise, all of should follow, these rules and regulations, because why? No reference. I'm not sure. Like
I think it is from Vedas. You think
yes,
that
yes,
Karma Kanda, right? He must
yes,
have been speaking from what he
yes,
learned from Karma Kanda.
yes, yes. So, and we have to follow, because please try to understand. See, our reference point is that we are soul, right? And if our forefathers, they may not have been devotees, for example, right? Uh, it is said in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the seventh canto, that the 21 dynasty of a devotee will be liberated. Like Krishna will take care of them. Uh, but as part of our basic responsibility, we know that we should always pray for that soul, departed soul. Like when recently my friend passed away, right? He may not have been a devotee, but it is our responsibility, sorry, as devotees, that we should pray for them, because they are souls. They may be going in different, they may be taking different bodies, they may be going in different planets. So we should pray to Krishna. When we are chanting, we should pray to Krishna, that Krishna, please show your mercy, please give them opportunity to take up a devotional service, to study, come closer wherever they are, in whatever body they are, even in animal body, whatever. So yes, and for our forefathers, we offer prasad to Krishna, and thereafter we offer that prasad. Sorry, so we offer prasad to our forefathers, and by accepting that prasad, that Vishnu prasad, they will be enlivened, they will be benefited. So it is our dharma that we should be doing that. Yes, right. Okay.
Sumit?
Yes, Harshad. Yeah, please.
Yeah, sorry, I actually don't have a, or maybe I have a question and maybe one comment also.
Right.
By insulting Arjuna, so this has shown Krishna's management skills basically, which could be which could be used in today's modern society and modern corporate world also, to get best out of someone. Sometimes an insult or maybe harsh words could also always help basically.
Right. So Harshad is my colleague in my organization. So and we work very closely. And yes, see, my spiritual master, His Holiness Gopal Krishna Maharaj, always says that we have to be really careful. When we interact with people, sometimes we have to chastise them. Sometimes we have to show their position, but also, as part of our daily behavior as devotees, and otherwise also in corporate world or wherever we are in our life, we can chastise, but then we have to also support them, because our, at the end of the day, our aim is to help a person, you know and I already gave you example of a surgeon, of a doctor, right? Doctor is a spoken, but that spoken doctor will also have to do surgery if required, right? So yes. Yeah. And Harshal, what is your question?
Yeah, Sumit, my question is basically, these Kauravas, they did behave in a very wrong manner with the Pandavas, including trying to poison them, try to put them ablaze, in Dandakaranya and thing like that.
Mhm.
But uh, when Draupadi was, disrobed in the court,
Mhm.
was it considered as the final nail, or maybe the end of their sins, and then Krishna didn't, or maybe Krishna decided to didn't don't tolerate this sort of nonsense or something?
Yeah, see, thanks Harshad for asking this question. Actually, I would have discussed, I would have elaborated on this in verse number 2.5, where Arjuna will say that how can I kill Bhishma and Drona? But just because you have asked me that, Kauravas have always been like aggressors, and we talked about, six kind of aggressors, which according to our shastras, they should be given a capital punishment, right? But the thing there in that particular incident and episode was that there were entire Kuru dynasty, in a sense that Bhishma was there, Drona was there, and almost, you know, all of them were there. And when Draupadi asked help, you know, Bhishma again tried to analyze it from a Karma Kanda perspective, right? You know, any rule or regulation is important as long as, we are achieving the aim of it. The rules and regulations should not be prohibiting if the end result could have been better, right? So for example, now we see in COVID pandemic, it is said that, you know uh, there is, we don't have substantial data on anything, I tell you very frankly, in this pandemic, research data, even on the vaccine, even you talk about the medications which are used. But what are authorities saying? What is government saying? What are medical authorities saying? That as long as there is a theoretical evidence, right, and the drug or vaccine is not going to cause harm, and there is a benefit, go ahead and do that. But Bhishma trying to analyze that situation through Karmakanda process was sort of, you know, not the right thing, right? Also, if you see, it was Krishna's plan. Why? Because Krishna wanted to highlight many things from that incident. Krishna wanted to show to the world that you may have great protection, as did Draupadi have from her 5 husbands. Like they were the most powerful people at that time. And even though Draupadi had 5 of them, even though Draupadi had, you know, the great grandfather Bhishma, Drona there, everyone around, she was put in a helpless situation, because Krishna wanted to highlight that we should not totally depend on material arrangements. We should always keep Krishna in the center of whatever we are doing. And again, with this example, Krishna showed that how he comes and protect. Also, with the example of Arjuna going to Indra Loka, we saw that how Krishna even giving him embarrassment and distressed and giving him the curse, he again gave, there was something beneficial for him, right? So in both situations and with both things, we have there to learn that dependence on Krishna should be the ultimate aim of our life.
Thank you so much.
Any other question or comment or suggestion, anything? Okay, so if not, we are on top of our, we'll end this session. Hare Krishna, I request you, see, we are on second chapter now. So I hope all of you must be by now chanting at least one round of Hare Krishna mantra, right? Someone requested that I at least once, sort of tease them, like, how they should be chanting. So, there is one, the head beat, and then there are 108 beats. So we should start, we don't use this pointing finger. So we should hold the, mala like this and use this, like, I'm not sure if you're able to see clearly, hold the bead like this and chant full one mantra on this: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, and then move on to the next beat, right? Chant full mantra and move. And then finally, when you come on this last beat, right, you don't cross over the head beat, you have to turn around, and then for the second round, your first bead will be the smallest bead, or the other side bead, right? So this is how it goes. So I request all of you, because that is the essence of all our, understanding and scriptural reading and all, because otherwise it will just be theoretical, so this theory, what we are learning, should be practiced also, because only after you practice you will get realization. And when you get a realization, then Krishna will reveal himself, from within the heart, right? So this is very important, that we should also try to practice. And we discuss Cheto Darpan Marjanam, Bhav Madhavagni Nirvapanam, Shreya Kerav Chandrika Vitaranam, Vidyavadu Jivanam, Anandam Buddhi Vardhanam, Pratipadam Purnam Riswadanam, Sarvatma Sanapanam Param Vijayate, Shri Krishna Sankirtan, how Chetan Mahaprabhu glorified the chanting, right? So I request all of you to please start chanting or continue chanting at least one round. And as we go forward in a study of Bhagavad Gita, after the end of every chapter, by that you chant 2 rounds, 3 rounds, and so by the end of chapter, end of Bhagavad Gita, we will all be chanting 16 rounds, right? That is the Yuga Dharma, right? So you all please start chanting, right? Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.